Hello and welcome to today's video. As you know, yeah, so it could be a World Cup where uh, things could be a little different in comparison to a load of other things. So, welcome to this World Cup stream of Mad About Sports today. And if you're watching this, remember to check out our course on Mad About Sports. The link is in the description. You can click on the link and check out our course in cricket analytics because that's where we'll be offering you some exciting course to make a career for yourself. And then you can check it out because there's a lot of packages which is awaiting you all when it comes to these courses and when it comes to the opportunities it provides in the field of cricket analytics. So do not forget to check that out because the arena is big, the opportunities are wide, and check it out because this is the opportunity to check it out well and quiet with the Mad About Sports. Fill the Google form in the description below. So yeah, let's get into today's video. I mean, as I was just mentioning, T20 World Cup could be different this time around because of a lot of reasons. And number one being it being played in Caribbean and USA islands. Caribbean islands and USA because you already saw the scores today morning. You just had a super over when Namibia took on uh, Oman, and that's the first sign of what you are yet to see in the T20 World Cup. Slow score of 108, playing 108, and then you had a 21 run super over. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, that you have a super over on the second day of the T20 World Cup, and then last night you had a very close game between Papua New Guinea and West Indies. How often are you going to see a team which is not even a test playing or a full member nation taking a two-time T20 World Cup champion to last over? And it wasn't the easiest of chase. Yeah, obviously West Indies got over the line, but West Indies, you saw there were moments where West Indies were put under tremendous pressure by Papua New Guinea, and I think that's the World Cup we can expect. Not a lot of high scores. Don't expect if you're coming after watching IPL. I think you're going to be in a very wrong narrative in terms of how the T20 World Cup is going to be played out. So keep your scoring rate extremely low in the T20 World Cup because pitches are not going to be the IPL kind of pitches where you're going to see 220 play 220, 240 or 250 play 250. It's all going to be somewhere in the 180s and 190s at max. And then you're going to see these low scoring thrillers where you're going to see bat and ball have an extremely high competition, which is good. I mean, after seeing the T20 cricket played across the world at flat tracks, you want to see that balance, and that's where you are going to see a lot of smaller nations come into play a lot more. Because what do you if the T20 World Cup is going to be a 250 play 250, or if the T20 World Cup is going to be a 200 plus kind of a T20 World Cup, then you're going to see that associate nations completely get taken away because then the batting prowess of the bigger teams are definitely going to take over. But if it is going to be a 120, 140, 150 kind of a T20 World Cup, then you're going to see upsets take place, and that is why you want to watch cricket for, because it's the first time T20 World Cup has moved even more global. You're seeing teams like Uganda take part, Nepal, Canada, USA. You saw Aaron Jones one innings replay in Dallas against Canada. I mean, that's what you want to see in a T20 World Cup from an inaugural from a home team. I mean, USA looks really good because they're just coming off a series win against Bangladesh, and they look like we are here to make a statement. I mean, that's what you want to see in a T20 World Cup, isn't it? that you want to see these young teams, you want to see these new teams make that mark. You want to see upsets. If the sport has to go global, you want to see uh, players take the initiative. I mean, you want to see likes of Aaron Jones being upraised a lot more. You want to see players take a lot more initiative, and I think it's perfect for T20 World Cup that you saw an innings from Aaron Jones like that, a 40 ball 90. I mean, you want to see things like that in T20 World Cup because otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to see the big boys take the charm away, and then you're going to say, okay, this is going to be predictable. You know who's going to qualify. But now what's going to happen is now you're going to see a lot more things turn around. So I think we have to look at. We'll talk about the Indian team shortly. I mean, I think we can start talking about the Indian national cricket team. To start off with, maybe we have to talk about how does India's fixtures look like, and that's the best thing to start off by talking about. How do Indian team line up, and what are the fixtures they're going to be up against in this T20 World Cup? Because remember, there are some interesting fixtures for Team India, starting off with the Ireland game, which is going to be on the 5th of June. The Ireland game is the first game which India are going to play. Uh, See, that's a very interesting game for a lot of reasons because Ireland is a very good team. At the end of the day, they competed against the Pakistan team. They were extremely good in terms of how they played against Pakistan. They really gave Pakistan a tough challenge. Then you're going to play Pakistan on the 9th. So that's an interesting game because both these games are going to be played in New York and then Nassau County Oval. Now you saw the wicket in the Nassau County Oval. It's a sand-based ground, and you saw the pitch playing weirdly, you can say. It was a tricky pitch in that warm-up game where India played Bangladesh. What do we take out of the Indian team from the Bangladesh warm-up game? So, if you did watch that game, one thing you saw as a fan, you can say, is that you saw players being tried out differently, especially someone like Rishabh Pant given the number three role. Now, is he going to play number three in the T20 World Cup? Not quite sure, but it certainly looks like a very decent ploy from Indian team to bring in Rishabh Pant and at the top of the order. And there's two things with that, right? Now, when you have someone who can bat left-hander in top three, that gives you a little bit of flexibility because then you can go, even if you lose a wicket early on, you can bring in a left-hander, turn things around a little bit. Then you can also be, then if you have a Shivam Dubey at number five, that is a good mix and match of a left-hander in the middle. You have a left-hander at three, left-hander at five, and left-hander at seven in Jadeja. So I think that's what India are looking at. And if you look at the structure of the team as well, India are looking at possibly seven bowling options, which will include the likes of Shivam Dubey as your seventh bowling option, Hardik Pandya, which is very, very important. Hardik Pandya is, I think, in my opinion, a very, very, very important factor when you look into this Indian team because you saw what he did with the bat against Bangladesh, scored a very vital 40, took wickets with the ball as well. So I think Hardik Pandya is a very important factor if you look at the balance of the team. Then you have Ravindra Jadeja at seven. I think he's very important there. If Ravindra Jadeja doesn't have a good tournament in the first five games, where he doesn't perform both the bat and ball, then you can consider Akshar Patel. Ideally, in my opinion, there should have been Akshar Patel ahead of Jadeja looking at the current T20 form because Jadeja hasn't really performed with the bat except for that last game which CSK playing against RCB, right? Where he showed glimpses of what he can do. But other than that, he's had a very mediocre IPL when it comes to his batting performance. And with the ball as well, he's not been like out of the world. It's just been very mediocre. I think Jadeja, the white ball player, his stocks has really gone down over the last couple of years. And that's really affecting him as well when it comes to his performance overall. So, ideally speaking, you need to look into that. Jadeja's form is a serious worry for Team India. And alongside, I think Shivam Dube's batting form is certainly something which India will be worried about as well. Why? Because from whatever you've seen of Shivam Dube in the last few matches played in the IPL and also coming into this particular tournament and the first warm-up game, he doesn't give you the confidence to say, you know what, this guy can really go out there and tonk spinners, and he's picked in the team for a specific role to take on the spinners. And Rohit Sharma was, in the entire press conference which Rohit Sharma had in India, one name which kept coming time and time again was Shivam Dube. So He is picked for a very particular reason in this team, that is to go and charge spinners and to take on spinners. Now, I don't know what's happened with Shivam Dubey, but he is just lost how to bat. He's just lost the touch on how to bat. And that's not a good thing, right? I mean, he's definitely had his woes against fast bowling over the last few years, especially with the short pitch fast bowling, but he's been a tonker of the spin bowling. That's for sure. So if he's going to lose his confidence in his ability to hit spin, then there's a serious issue we're talking about. So we really hope, and we can all hope at this point, that Shivam Dubey gets his form back and starts playing well from the first game against Ireland. Because for India, you would need Shivam Dubey to do well at number five, especially because it's a very crucial batting position. He will be the guy who would pass over between the middle order and the lower middle order. He could be a possible finisher as well in situations of bother. So he's going to be very important for India at number five. Shivam Dubey, I'm talking about. Now, if Shivam Dubey doesn't really come along, what India can possibly do is to play Rishabh at five and Sanju at three, which is quite a possibility because you have six bowling options already. Rishabh can bat number five for sure, and then you have Sanju at three. That is, you're technically playing two wicketkeeper batters, but the fact of the matter is Sanju can give you plus five on the field. He's an excellent fielder, Sanju Samson. He can give you plus five, plus 10 on the field, which is good enough in a T20 setup. And then you can continue to play as Rishabh the keeper, which is good enough as well for India. So from an Indian team standpoint, what India needs to do is to make sure that there is Surya Kumar Yadav who's in good form, and then you have someone like a Shivam Dubey getting back in form as well. Because it looks like India's structure is having the left-hander every alternative positions, so that India are not targeted a lot with a left-arm spinner. India aren't targeted too often with a leg spinner as well. That's something which India had issues in the 2022 T20 World Cup. Now, if you look at India's T20 World Cup in 2022, you did not have a left-hander in top six. The only left-hander you had was Akshar Patel at seven. And Akshar Patel's batting wasn't that great either. So that's where a lot of teams use left-arm spin against India, and they were able to curtail Indian team, or a leg spinner to curtail Indian team. So going back at things, India would want to really correct that particular area which teams look to trouble India with by bringing in a new left-hander, and that's why I think Rishabh at three is what India are looking at, and you'd have Surya at four and Shivam at five. Six you would have a Hardik Pandya, and seven you'd have Ravindra Jadeja. Now Rishabh, batted brilliantly in that game against Bangladesh. He showed he can take on spin, he can take on left arm spin, especially. He looked confident. He brought his wild shots back as well. He looked like he wanted to go out there and do a job, and that's something which Rishabh brings. Right, he's got the innovative game as well. He can play the ram shots. He can play 360 degree, which is very important in modern day T20 cricket. And for Indian team particularly, if you look at the squad balance, India will be going with three seamers, and India will be playing the likes of Siraj, Arshdeep, and Bumrah, and one of them will be an opening over bowler, which in my opinion is going to be Mohammad Siraj, because India would want to use Mohammad Siraj to the best of its effect up front. If Mohammad Siraj can deliver something up front, that's going to be perfect. Or else, you know what, they're going to use Arshdeep. So most likely Bumrah and Siraj will open the bowling with Arshdeep to ball in some stage back into the power play. Then you're going to see the likes of Kuldeep Yadav, Ravindra Jadeja, Hardik Pandya, and to an extent even Shivam Dubey operate in the middle overs. So that's how India are going to stack up going into that first game against Ireland. Obviously, India will find that balance quite right, especially with India having seven bowling options going into that game. And I think India also wanted that seven bowling option because Shivam Dubey would have given them some bit of confidence picking up those two wickets against Bangladesh. To add to all, what India will be most satisfied with will be Rishabh Pant's form, because there was an issue with Rishabh Pant struggling against spin in the IPL. Now, if Rishabh Pant can bat top three, because Rishabh has always been really good on top of the order, and if Rishabh can give you runs up top in top three with the runs of the bat, that also gives relieves pressure of a Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma up top, and from whatever we have seen, I think India will be going in with Virat and Rohit Sharma as openers and Rishabh at three. Then you're going to see Surya at four, and then you're going to see Shivam at five. I think that's how India's top five is going to look like. and then you're going to see Hardik and Jadeja's all rounders at 6 and 7. At 8, you're going to see Kuldeep Yadav, then Bumrah, Siraj, and Arshdeep. So that's how India's 11 is going to look like, because looks like a safe 11. You're not going to see a lot of changes from that. What can India do different from that 11? As I mentioned, if Shivam Dubey is not really hitting off in the first few games in the T20 World Cup, what you can do is maybe when you go to the Super 8 stage, you can maybe bring in Sanju Samson at 3, and then you can push down Rishabh at 5, which is not a bad idea. Then you still have a left-hander. You're just going one left-hander short, but you still have a left-hander to use. So that's how India would want to go. Look, India is looking at the ground dynamics as well. If you look at that Nassau County Oval, it's got weird dynamics when it comes to ground structure. It's got you want to use those shorter boundaries well, and being a left having a left-hander in top three would really help you to use those shorter boundaries, especially on the leg side for left-handers, which you saw in that game against Bangladesh. Because some of the left-handers, especially some of the shots which Rishabh played, he was able to clear it with ease. But one thing which India will be slightly worried about will be the surface, how it plays out, because from what we've seen in day games, at least the ball wasn't quite coming onto the bat initially. It is a drop-in pitch, and some one thing which you need to know about drop-in pitches is that the ball does tend to jag around a little bit up front, and that you saw that in the game against Bangladesh. Then the ball does tend to hold around as well, but you can score a lot of runs, and do not expect it to be a 195 kind of a wicket. It's going to be somewhere around 165 to 175. So that's one thing about these kind of drop-in wickets. And also the outfield in the South County Oval was extremely slow. It was a sand-based ground, as I mentioned. It is a sand-based ground, so it is going to be hard. It's going to be one of those outfields where the ball is going to get sucked in. Where you're not going to see those shots like what you've seen in IPL, where one bounce fours and just clear the 30-yard circle. They're going to get boundary for sure. You have to be extremely smart in terms of the way in which you want to score runs in this kind of grounds. That's why you need smarter players. You need to use ground dimensions well. And that's one of the only reasons why I see India structuring their team with left-handers every alternate positions, because you would want to maximize the ground dynamics to its best of effects. And some of the pockets which you saw in the Nassau County Oval were slightly bigger in comparison to a lot of other grounds in the US. So that's one thing which India will have in their mind. How to use these pockets. I think Virat Kohli will be a master in these kind of grounds, especially picking up those doubles and running those doubles harder, putting the ball in the gaps. So I think Virat Kohli is going to be massive. I think for India's success in the T20 World Cup as well, especially in game against Pakistan, we all know this success he's had against Pakistan for sure. But more than that, his experience in playing in these kind of conditions is going to really come in handy. Though Virat Kohli might not have played any game in New York, but these kind of situations. Remember, this is a drop-in pitch taken from Adelaide as well, and we all know his love affair with Adelaide. We don't have to mention it again and again, but I think Virat Kohli is going to be a massive factor, especially in that kind of a ground. How much are we looking at in this World Cup? It's going to be very very tough to judge at this point, because you saw in Dallas, in USA Canada game, it was a totally different surface. In a night game, the pitch tends to play differently. But today you saw in the night game in Namibia versus Oman, where it was 109, 109. So it's so hard to predict the T20 World Cup early on. Maybe after the first week we'll have a clearer picture with a lot of data points as to what it could be a 150 kind of a T20 World Cup. Now, from whatever earlier things, what I can expect, I can say there's going to be a 160 T20 World Cup, 160, 175 T20 World Cup. Now, if it's a 160, 175 T20 World Cup, I think India have a lot more chances in comparison to a 240 T20 World Cup. Now, why I say that is because India have got the players to play a 160, 175 game. India have got the ideal mix of players to play a 160, 175 kind of game, whereas a lot of other teams might not have those that correct blend of players who can maybe rotate the strike, they play around here and there. You saw that with the West Indies team last evening, where you saw them score 260 in a warm game, but against Papua New Guinea on a tougher surface, you saw them really struggle. So that's what I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, if you have the right amount of goods, I think India are very experienced. If it's a 180, 175 kind of a T20 World Cup, but if it's a 230 T20 World Cup, I think India falls short of the curve, because India do not really have the power hitters to really go out there and to push scores of 250, 255. So that's one thing which I think that's where I think a lot of people are still in the euphoria of IPL where you saw 250 being such an easy task or 240 being such a cakewalk, and that's where I think a lot of these teams will have to regen and focus on. There's no impacts up for sure, and at the same time the pitches are also a lot more harder. Some of the grounds are slightly more bigger as well. So I think that's good for cricket in general that you're going to see some bit of movement. You saw that today when a Trumpelman bowled, especially for Namibia today early in the morning. The ball was swinging quite a bit. You saw in that game against Bangladesh, Bangladesh when Shoriful was bowling up front with the new ball, you saw the ball swinging around. Arshdeep was getting the ball to swing quite a bit. So, from whatever has to go by, there is a little bit of swing movement available for bowlers early on in the with the new ball. If bowlers can use that to their best effect, if some teams would like to front load a lot more, maybe not really focus on the death bowling for expert. Go along with the new ball ballers and front load a little bit and see how things go in. And some of the teams are going to really do that. Some of the teams are going to have success in that as well. Now, you did speak about India. I spoke of the structure of the team, how it's going to look like. Now, let's look at how India can possibly look at this T20 World Cup, right? Now, I spoke of the game against Ireland. Ireland is going to be a very interesting challenge for two reasons. Number one, you are not sure of what to expect from an Ireland team because they've had some good success in the T20 cricket recently. You have players like High Tech, Lochran. These guys are going to be really in good form. And Paul Sturley, he's been ever present there in that team. You can always come in and deliver. George Dockwell has turned into an excellent finisher for this team. And then you have Curtis Camphor, you have the likes of McCarthy, and all these lads are going to come in and deliver with the bat as well. So Irish team can battle number 10, number 9. That's one thing which is given. And then you have this vibrancy of the Tuckers and the Lockrins who can do with the bat. So that's where you have to take the Irish team seriously. You might think the early game, which is going to be really challenging for India, is the Pakistan game, but no, I kid you not. Uh, Ireland game is going to be equally challenging, and the USA game as well. Because one thing about this USA team is that they're on a high riding wave. Now, we do not know what to expect from this USA team. Now, it's just one knock which can turn things. Imagine India scores 170. God forbid India has a bad day with the bat. That's where T20 cricket can be. One good knock, the game can be taken away. So let's not take oppositions like USA and Ireland for granted because they can hurt you. It's just a couple of innings, like an Aaron Jones innings, and that could really take away a Corey Anderson innings. That could really take away things. Monal Patel was very, very keen in performing against India. So these lads can be extremely, you know, hurtful if they get going. So India will have to be wary of how to play and how to tackle these oppositions at the right time because looking at the structure of this tournament, you will have to be at absolute best throughout every game. There is no, cider as you would want to mention because as you want to say, okay, this is an easy game. Let's start off easy in the tournament. Maybe you have one game for that. That's all. That's all you have in the entirety of the tournament. Your one game to maybe lapse. Other than that, you'll have to be at your A game from the very first game, and you would want to set the tone, especially in the island you want to set the tone. You would want to score runs big, and you want to win big because NRR is again a factor in T20 format. So you want to finish top of the table. You want to go to a good group. So these are factors which India will be having in their mind, especially going into you know the Super Eights as well. Because Pakistan, you're going into a Pakistan game. If you go in with a victory, you always are a high note. You're on a high note. If you're going to go in by having a scratchy performance, you're going to have that self doubt because India Pakistan is just more than just a game. Let's be very honest. There's a lot of external pressure. It's in New York. There's a lot of news off the field already on that game. So I think India versus Pakistan will be the contest to watch out for because if you look at the last four instances these two teams met, it's 2-2. The 2021 World Cup, Pakistan defeated India. Asia Cup 2021, 2022, India defeated the first game, Pakistan went on to defeat in the second game. Then 2022 famous World Cup game where India went on to defeat Pakistan. So it's 2-2 at this point in the last four encounters between India and Pakistan. It's all level, but it's an India Pakistan game at the end of the day, right? There's been Pakistan's best format as well if you look at among all the other formats because in one day and test you could say India are way more superior, but in T20 it's been more like a 49-51 kind of a contest because it's a format where a lot of smaller teams get to upset the other teams as well. So that's where T20 format is even more equal, and India hasn't been at their best in the T20 format. So this is where Pakistan versus India is going to be one contest to really eye in for. If you have to ask me my prediction for that, obviously India will start as favorites, no doubt about it. And obviously, you are a much more balanced team when it comes to you've covered a lot more bases. I think India will use their spin bowling to a lot more effect because someone like Kuldeep Yadav, if that Nusao County Oval, after having played 2 to 3 games, if it turns at all, if it's not a fresh wicket for the India Pakistan game, you can expect the ball to stop and come. And that's where I think the likes of Jadeja and Kuldeep Yadav is going to be a lot more potent. As I mentioned, there are some big pockets there in that ground. I think likes of Kuldeep Yadav is going to really enjoy it. And India can also try to play Chehel and Kuldeep together, so which is not a bad idea. And then you can sacrifice on a fast bowler because Chehel can also bowl the depth from what we are seeing in the IPL. So these are options which India have. I think India have covered a lot of bases well in the squad picking, though there was a lot of controversy. But if you look at it from an overview perspective, when you compare them with other teams, India have covered a lot of bases, right? And I think India will certainly will go on to have a good World Cup. That's something which my inner feeling tells me that India will go on to have a good World Cup, and I think India will finish on a very good note. This World Cup, I would have been slightly more skeptical if it was some other time, but looking at the pitches primarily, I think India will have a good World Cup. And that's about from us on Mad About Sports for today's live stream. I hope you really enjoyed it. We'll be back very soon because the games are coming in thick and fast. Tonight is South Africa versus Sri Lanka, first big game of this World Cup, you can say so. And you've already seen a super over, so it's an exciting World Cup thus far. We'll be here to keep you updated with all of these news. Take care, all of you, and see you all very, very soon. Bye bye.